The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew.
Glory to you, Lord.
As they came down from the mountain, the disciples put this question to Jesus: Why do the scribes say that Elijah has to come first? True, he replied, Elijah is to come to see that everything is once more as it should be. However, I tell you that Elijah has come already, and they did not recognize him, but treated him as they pleased. And the Son of Man will suffer similarly at their hands. The disciples understood then that he had been speaking of John the Baptist. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
So 2 days ago we were reading something which was similar to this in Matthew 11, where Jesus was saying categorically that that Elijah has come in the person of John the Baptist. And then today we are hearing the disciples, after they had the experience of the transfiguration, where where Elijah, the prophet Elijah and Moses had appeared to Jesus on Mount Tabor. And then after that experience, they are coming down from the mountain, and then the disciples put this question to him, and they say, is it true when the scribes say that Elijah has to come? And he says something very interesting, that Elijah, it is true, Elijah has to come, but in fact, Elijah has really come, and they didn't recognize him. They didn't recognize him. And he says similarly about himself, that he is going to go through what John the Baptist also went through, what Elijah went through, the new Elijah, John the Baptist. Because we know John the Baptist was arrested and eventually beheaded. And Jesus says that a similar fate would follow him. Why? Because they did not recognize him. If they had known that Jesus was God, if they had known that Jesus was the Messiah, I am sure everything would have changed. But they saw him instead as a rebel. They saw him as somebody who had come to oppose the law of Moses and to turn around the table of what they held as valuable. And therefore, Jesus says they did not recognize him. This is one thing that John talks about in his Gospel, in John chapter 1, verse 10 and 11. And he said that the world came to be through him, yet the world did not recognize him. Jesus was there in the beginning. John's Gospel starts with saying that in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And the world came to be through him, and the world did not recognize him. And verse 11 says that he came to his own town in Nazareth, and his own people did not even accept him. Remember when Jesus was arrived in Bethlehem, there was even no room for him in the inn. There was no place for him. The world did not even recognize or find a room for him in the inn. That is why he had to be born in Bethlehem on a manger, because there was no room for the Savior of the world. And in the same way, we could say, do we recognize Jesus today? Do we see him? When we come across experiences of life, when we go through the day, do we recognize those areas where we would say that we really found the Lord? I remember an experience that I had, my first pastoral work in the parish called Mbeme in Cameroon, in the southwest part of Cameroon, the Diocese of Mamfe. And when we went on that pastoral, we were given maps to go up the mountain. And we climbed the mountains for about a journey of about 8 hours, trekking up the mountain and crossing rivers. And when I had finished my pastoral, I had to come back to the parish, so I had to descend. And on my way going down, one of the rivers that I was supposed to cross, it was raining that day, so the river was really overflown, and it was all flooded, and I didn't know the path to follow, because there is a particular path you have to go through. And I was standing there for about 10 minutes trying to figure out where would I pass, because every place was all water and I was in the bush alone. And just at the time I decided to go through, and then somebody appeared from somewhere and then said, "No, don't try that. Don't dare." And then he said, come, I show you the path to follow. And then we crossed together. And then he told me, if you had managed, if you had tried to even step on that in that place, you would have gone. And the funny thing would have been that you would have gone, nobody would have known where you are, because those days we were not using phones or to call my parents to say that I was coming down. Nothing. I would have just been carried by the river and I would have been forgotten. And when I think about this experience, I just said God has sent him, because it would have just been 2 minutes. If he did not appear in 2 minutes' time, I think I would have gone. I would have tried to trek, because I had found no way again. And I said, let me just try this, because I can't keep standing here for the rest of the day. And I found Jesus in him. That is the experience that, when I think about that, came to my mind. That when I think about, I say that I think that was God who sent him to tell him to direct me on the path to take. And I think we meet God every day, every single day, in our experiences, in the people that we meet, in the smiles of people, in the stories that we hear. We meet God. But the problem is, do we recognize him? Do we recognize God in our experiences? Or do we overflow or overshadow that experience with judgment, with criticism, with gossiping, with jealousy? Things like that begin to hinder us from recognizing Christ when he appears to us in our daily events of our lives, when we have encounters with him in everything that we do. And like I say and I repeat, we encounter Jesus every day, every single day, and in every experience. It's just that we don't have time to sit and look behind on our day. We'll be able to recognize, if we have that spirit of discernment, we'll be able to recognize those moments when we encountered Jesus in a personal way. So my dear brothers and sisters, it's so important, especially as we prepare for Christmas, that we recognize Jesus. Let us not be like the people of Bethlehem. When Jesus came there, when the mother Mary was pregnant and was about to give birth, there was no room for him in the inn. Let us try to make room for Christ in our hearts, especially as we prepare for Christmas. As we continue to light up the churches and the chapels and the streets and the malls, it's so important that we light up our hearts, that when Jesus comes, he will find a comfortable place to rest in the very hearts of ours.